Good afternoon. As a reminder, about 12:30, and this is why I'm close to on time, we will have our Deputy Secretary General, Mina Mohammed, join us. She will be accompanied by Ambassador Hector Gomez Hernandez, the permanent representative of Spain to the United Nations, and Ambassador Chola Milambo, permanent representative of Zambia to the United Nations. They are here to preview for you the upcoming fourth International Conference on Financing for Development, which you all know will be taking place in Sevilla, in Spain. This morning, you have seen that the Secretary General was at the General Assembly, where he delivered remarks on the responsibility to protect. Mr. Guterres warned that we are witnessing the highest number of armed conflicts since the end of the Second World War. These are marked by rising identity-based violence, widespread violations of international humanitarian law and human rights law, as well as deepening impunity. Mr. Guterres said that we must recognize that the responsibility to protect is more than just a principle, it is a moral imperative rooted in our shared humanity and the UN Charter. And he added that credibility as the guardian, he added that credibility as the guardian of peace and security, development, and human rights required consistency with the Charter. And tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the General Assembly, the Secretary General will deliver remarks to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the signing of the Charter of the United Nations. And we will be distributing those remarks to you a bit later today. This morning, the Security Council heard a briefing from Virginia Gamba, the Secretary General's Special Representative for Children in Armed Conflict, who was presenting the Secretary General's report. She said, as you've seen in the report, that 2024 marked a devastating new record. The United Nations verified 41,370 grave violations against children, a staggering 25% increase compared to 2023. She added that the report she is presenting also includes the highest number of children killed or maimed since the mandate was established by the Security Council. Cases of sexual violence, she added, also rose by 35%, with 1,982 verified cases. The way forward is clear, she said. The Security Council we must call on all parties to the conflict, particularly the armed forces and groups listed in the annexes to the report, to engage with the United Nations to develop, to sign, and to fully implement action plans that end and prevent grave violations against children. Also briefing from the UN side was Shima Sengupta, UNICEF's Director of Child Protection. She said that we cannot allow these grave violations against children to continue unchecked, and she called on the Council members to act with urgency, with courage, and with the conviction that every child, no matter where they are, deserves to live in peace. All those remarks were shared with you. Turning to the continuing bleak situation in the Gaza Strip, our colleagues at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that Israeli operations, including shelling and bombing across the Strip, continue to have a devastating impact on civilians, reportedly killing and injuring scores of people, many of whom were just seeking aid. Meanwhile, the rapid depletion of remaining fuel stocks is jeopardizing efforts to keep Gaza's lifelines up and running. The UN Population Fund said that 80% of critical care units, including those used for childbirth, risk shutting down at a time when 130 women are giving birth every day in Gaza. As UNFPA stressed, fuel for Gaza is a matter of life and death. Israeli authorities continue to restrict the delivery of fuel into and throughout the Gaza Strip, effectively choking off life-saving services for deprived and starving people. This week, community kitchens were able to prepare more than 200,000 meals every day. However, this represents an 80% reduction compared with more than 1 million meals distributed daily at the end of April. So it's basically being a trickle offered to people on the brink of famine. Meanwhile, our partners tell us that in the absence of fuel, cooking gas, and electricity, people are burning plastic waste. When they do so in makeshift tents, you can imagine that what happens with poor ventilation and the tremendous risks that that poses. OCHA also reminds us that to meaningfully address the massive deprivation in Gaza, Israeli authorities must allow higher volumes of supplies and more varied types of food, as well as cooking gas, fuel, and shelter items to come into Gaza. To facilitate the orderly distribution of aid supplies must be channeled daily through multiple crossings and land routes simultaneously, ensuring that that the flow of essential support is steady, it is sufficient, and it is reliable. Yesterday, we and our partners attempted to coordinate 15 humanitarian movements inside Gaza. Only 4 were fully facilitated by the Israeli authorities. 7 other attempts were denied outright, preventing our teams from trucking water, retrieving broken trucks, or repairing roads. Another 4 missions were initially approved but then impeded on the ground, although one was ultimately accomplished today. Another mission had to be canceled by the organizers. OCHA also tells us this week that tens of thousands of students were unable to sit for this year's general secondary examination due to insecurity, displacement orders, and internet connectivity challenges that exist in Gaza. Last year, about 39,000 high school students in Gaza were reportedly unable to sit for these exams. Our colleague Tom Fletcher, the Emergency Relief Coordinator and Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, is continuing his visit to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. After meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Teres Kaikwamba Wagner, and officials in Kinshasa, on Monday, Mr. Fletcher is now in the eastern part of the DRC, where more than 20 million people need humanitarian assistance, and we've been telling you about that situation almost on a daily basis. Mr. Fletcher today was in Minova in South Kivu province, where he visited a water supply and waste management project helping displaced and local residents. He also visited a mobile clinic providing health care to people impacted by conflict. Health remains a critical concern in that part of the DRC, it has been impacted not only by the fighting but by critical funding shortages. Years of violence, displacement, lack of access to clean water and sanitation have created conditions for outbreaks of diseases like cholera, which are preventable and treatable so as long as they're sufficiently funded. Mr. Fletcher also today visited the city of Sasha, where he spoke with women at the Center for Returnees who shared stories about violence they faced, including sexual violence. He then traveled on to Goma, where he met with communities and humanitarian partners on the latest needs facing the country. Mr. Fletcher will continue his visit to Goma tomorrow. Our colleagues at the Office for Disarmament Affairs and the UN Development Program today launched Salient 2.0, which is the second phase of the Saving Lives Entity Trust Fund, known by its acronym Salient. Established in 2020, the trust fund integrates small arms control and armed violence reduction into national development strategies as part of a wider effort for conflict prevention. Building on the success of its pilot and the first phases in countries such as Cameroon, Ghana, Honduras, Jamaica, the Kyrgyz Republic, Panama, Papua New Guinea, and South Sudan, the Salient 2.0 aims to deepen and broaden the impact. Activities under the project are fully aligned with the Pact for the Future and the New Agenda for Peace. And as you can imagine, we call member states to invest in Salient to save lives and achieve development. And I'm not wearing my captain's hat today, but today is the International Day of the Seafarer. Seafarer, people who are at sea. Seafarers. Seafarers are critical. Everything that import that you see on ships is thanks to seafarers who are on the front lines, and we like seafarers. And the Secretary General says that seafarers keep global trade flowing, delivering vital goods around the world, and their work is essential to our lives and to our economies, Celia. Okay, anybody has any questions about seafarers? Anything else? Gabriel. It's not even Friday, and it's already loony bin here.
Do you get seasick, Steph?
I do not get sea. I have good sea legs.
Okay, good. Regarding the Security Council this morning, the Algerian permanent representative had some pretty scathing comments about Virginia Gamba. He said, among other things, that despite the dire situation in Gaza, the Office of the SRSG Children in Armed Conflict response has been strikingly insufficient, is his words. That they've issued remarkably few statements despite the situation in Gaza, 2 this year alone. He went on, but I won't summarize everything he said. Does the Secretary General have any reaction to this?
Well, I can tell you the Secretary General fully supports the work of Ms. Gamba and the work of her office. I think the report that she works on and is issued in the Secretary General's name speaks for itself in terms of the grave violations that we see and the horrific suffering of children in many places around the world, including in Gaza.
Let me ask something else on another topic, if I can. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sends out statements to the media almost every day. And for the last week or so, they've been pretty critical of the UN. I just want to ask some clarifications. They say that the UN has aid convoys in the vicinity of our distribution sites and uses corridors in proximity to them. Is that true?
I mean, we use, let me just put it this way. We use the corridors and we use the routes that the Israeli authorities allow us to use.
Okay. I guess the point of this is they seem to be saying that you don't speak for them. Let me just say, it appears there's confusion. Is that safe to say that there's confusion on how the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation and how the UN interface when it comes to
I don't
aid?
think there's confusion. We were asked to meet with them a few weeks ago in Jerusalem. We did. We expressed to them our deep concerns about the way their operations were set up. I think the few journalists that are in Gaza are able to see it for themselves. You know, the fact that I actually need to say that people shouldn't get killed while trying to get food is crazy enough, right? There are different ways. There are better ways to distribute food, distribute humanitarian aid, not to oblige people to walk miles through militarized zones. We are not saying, and we have never said, that only the UN can do it. We can't do it alone. And in fact, you know, during the ceasefire, we didn't do the majority of the humanitarian distribution. What we're asking is that people do it under accepted international principles that is safe for those who are receiving aid and safe for those who are trying to distribute it. Abdelhamid, then go to Edie.
Follow up on Gabriel's question. How could the Secretary General approve this report when it says that only 1,269 children killed in Gaza in the year of 2024? Does it make sense? Is that any human can believe this number? How could the SG approve this report? Explain it to me, please.
The report is done under a very specific methodology of verification, right? Whether it's in the Gaza conflict, whether it's Ukraine and other places. And we are very clear in the report that this is the tip of the iceberg. We've also been echoing here on a regular basis the numbers given out by the Ministry of Health in Gaza that others criticize us for using, right? We have used those numbers as well. We echo those numbers because we find them to be generally correct. Her report is done according to a methodology which is given to her through her mandate by the Security Council, which is extremely specific. And I think the report itself is extremely clear in saying these are only the cases they have been able to verify in what is an ongoing conflict. And also being very clear by the fact that this only represents very likely a fraction of the children who've been killed or maimed.
Follow up. I mean, the report does not talk about attacks on hospitals nor attacks on schools. Does it need, where is more verification needed if it's more than what's coming out in video, live video cases? You can see that.
Listen, you and I think, will not agree, but we have been extremely vocal, extremely transparent, extremely animated about the suffering of the people of Gaza. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. President Trump announced today that the United States will hold talks with Iran next week. Does the Secretary General have any reaction to that announcement?
I mean, we welcome the fact that these talks may take place. We very much hope that the parties in this conflict, and frankly what we're seeing in Gaza as well, in the negotiations to end that conflict, take profit of the momentum created by the ceasefire. Deji,
Follow-up on
China
that.
Central Television.
Thank you, Stefan Dujarric, the spokesperson for the UN Secretary General. Let me finish that. Okay, so a follow-up. Iranian parliament approved a bill today to suspend cooperation with IAEA. What's the position from Secretary General, and has he recently talked to any Iranian officials?
Listen, my understanding is that this is a bill that was approved by the parliament, but the decision still needs to be made by the executive. So as you know, we don't like to comment on bills before parliament. As we've always said, the cooperation between the IAEA and Iran is of critical importance.
Will Secretary General urge the officials not to approve this bill?
I think I've answered your question by saying that the cooperation between the IAEA and Iran is critically important.
Okay, another thing, back to Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The Trump administration has authorized a 30 million grant to this fund, which many people said it's a death trap for Gaza who's seeking humanitarian aids. I guess what is this? What would the Secretary General suggest President Trump to do with that $30 million?
I think we are. Who is the Secretary General to make such a suggestion? We are focusing our own efforts, and I think as for our position on the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I would refer you to what I told Gabriel. Yes, sorry, next question. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Steph. Another question on the report and Ms. Gamba's speech today. If the monitoring system, which you just mentioned, and she mentioned during her press briefing the other day while presenting the report, if this monitoring system is flawed and it was placed in the system over 25 years ago, and there's a lot of criticism about its efficiency, can you please tell us what is then the value of such a report that is based on such a very flawed system, and is it time to change the monitoring system, update it?
I will leave it to the wisdom of the Security Council members to decide whether or not to change the mandate they have given the Secretary General in creating that office many years ago. And I think we've all said that the system could be perfected. At minimum, it ensures that the plight of children who are suffering on the front lines of armed conflict is not forgotten. Pam, and then we'll go to the back.
Yeah, a follow-up to Edie's question, or maybe it was Deji's, but the IAEA negotiations have been central to Iran's nuclear program. President Trump said not only that there would be meetings next week, but that he didn't think a deal was necessary. What is the, that there may be no need for a nuclear deal. What is the UN's position on having
the UN's
a deal?
position is the IAEA's position, which is in the lead on this file. Which is that that Iran and as other countries have obligations to the IAEA. Yes, sir.
This is Sigmund for Finanz und Wirtschaft in Zurich. The Swiss government just recently has committed some additional financing for the UN Geneva office, and I was curious if this was somehow tied to any tangible commitments or guarantees for officers or jobs to remain in Geneva when it comes to UN 80.
We see it as an act of generosity on the part of the Swiss federal government to support the United Nations work in Geneva. The UN's presence in Geneva is critical. It is also historical. And we very much welcome the efforts of the Swiss government in that regard. Alexei.
Thanks so much, Steph. Quick follow-up on Edie's question. Will anyone from the United Nations be participating in these negotiations?
In which, sorry, in?
From the United Nations.
For which negotiations?
Between between the United States and Iran, like
I'm not
atomic
aware.
energy.
No.
No requests?
No, not that I'm aware. Gabriel, and then we'll go get our guests.
Thanks, Steph. Any update on Ian Martin's strategic assessment review of UNRWA?
Yes, there is an update. I'm supposed to get it, and then I'll share it with you. Okay, don't go away.